It's normal to ask what to play on a walking bass line or solo on the second chord of Take the A Train. It's normal to ask, as one viewer did, because it's written two different ways, D7 sharp 11 or D7 flat 5. Even legal rule books have this conflicting information in different versions. And I want to get into details about it, but I want to give you basically the answer first and then get into it. The first answer and most important thing is to play whatever supports the musicians around you in the moment. So you're adjusting to the sound in the moment. That's the priority by far. If you can't quite hear it, if you're not quite sure what's happening, or if no one's giving a definitive sort of sound as to what they're doing, I can give you a little tip, which is that when you are making a bass line, you can include both the flat 5 and the natural 5 in your line. We know for sure that certain things are happening in this chord. The root, F sharp, third. This sound is either flat 5 or sharp 11, and then a flat 7, C, and also E, the 9. We know for sure that's happening. I checked it myself. If you're going to play a walking bass line, I'm just playing D7 right now. Just the arpeggio. Did you catch that? Basically, I'm saying I'm allowing for any possibility by playing them both. That's a quick answer. Let's get into a long answer now. Welcome to Learn Jazz Bass with Matt Rybicki. If you're new here, my name is Matt, and I've been playing bass for over 35 years with folks like Nina Freelon. I've had a chance to play with Benny Green and Ernie Watts. I attended the Juilliard School and Berklee College of Music. I teach at the Juilliard School in their Extension Division and at University of North Carolina School of the Arts. I'm glad that you're here. So we're talking about this second chord in Take the A Train, and when I started to really get into it and really study it as an answer to this viewer's question, and go deeper than what I automatically do, I realized that it exists in a very funny place. And I wanted to describe, if you're not familiar with the thought experiment referred to as Schrodinger's cat. And this has to do with quantum physics. This physicist was apparently talking with Einstein, Albert Einstein, and the thought experiment is actually a refutation of the idea that something on the quantum level, smaller than an atom, can basically be two things at once, what often is called superposition. So for example, if you have a radioactive element that decays, at the quantum level, it is both decayed and not decayed at the same time, theoretically. So Schrodinger, in saying how kind of silly this was for a bigger idea, said, okay, if we put a cat in a box and close it up, and we have a radioactive element that can decay, and a Geiger counter, which would sense that decay. And the Geiger counter, if it senses the decay, breaks a bottle of poison and kills the cat. Before you open the box, he was saying sort of like, and what became known as colloquially as the idea is that the cat is both alive and dead at the same time in the box until you look at it. That's how it's colloquially thought of. And in some way, I believe, I'm not by any means a master of quantum physics, please correct me in the comments. The idea does, though, exist on this quantum level that two things are true at the same time until they are observed, quote unquote. And so Schrodinger is saying how silly this is when you think about that related to a cat, if I understand it correctly. But this all applies to this chord. This is sort of like that radioactive element or that cat that is both things at once. And even further, when observed, seems to fall into one particular state. Because I went through a whole bunch of examples transcribing this section, bass players and piano players, and found conflicting information. Let me cut now to me on piano, actually. I did something new for this video. Let me talk on piano for a minute and then we'll come back. Let's examine these two different kinds of chords here on the piano and see if that might offer a little bit of insight. The first thing is that we know that there are certain notes that are absolutely present in pretty much every scenario unless someone is purposefully substituting that particular sound on that chord. Starting from the bottom up, I'll start with D, root, third, and then the flat 5 or sharp 11, and then flat 7, and then also there's a 9. Bad voicing there. My voice is a little lower. D, that's the root, third, flat 7, here's the 9, E, and the flat 5 or sharp 11. Just with some bad voicing here, the melody of the tune, right? So, the question is this a flat 5 or a sharp 11? If it is a flat 5, it implies a whole tone scale. A whole tone scale means that it's a symmetric scale. Every note is one whole step away from each other. For a D whole tone, start on a D, go up a whole step to E, up a whole step to F sharp, up a whole step to G sharp or A flat, up a whole step to A sharp or B flat, up a whole step to C, up a whole step to D. I don't know a good fingering for this. Piano players, help me. Okay, that's if it's a flat 5. We think it's whole tone because the E is present. So these two together give the indication it's probably a whole tone. Plus, as I'll say in the video elsewhere, people are actually playing whole tone sounds when they're improvising there. However, let's go back to root, third, flat 7, 9. Let's say this is a sharp 11. If this is a sharp 11, let's talk about what that means first. We're talking about the key of D major, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm saying sharp that, make that sharp there. G sharp, and then A, B. So if it's a sharp 11, that implies that the A and the B are now available, which are not in whole tone. Remember, this is the whole tone shape. And sharp 11 shape. And that's a different sound to improvise with. So, as I'll say in the video probably as well, as I say, I don't see a lot of, or really hear a lot of instances. My ears aren't great for listening to old recordings of big bands. There's lots of people that are better than me with transcribing, but I don't hear this. I don't hear the B in there, except that there is an example of Billy Strayhorn's own hand having B in the voicing somewhere. So that's the essential question. Are the notes outside of the ones we discussed? Are the notes basically just a B flat as well, and only that? Because the C is present. Or do we also get B's in there too? A and B. That or that. One more time. This with the A down here. That or this. That's the question. Hopefully looking at a piano makes it perhaps a little bit easier. So, as I mentioned, we're talking about the idea that if it is intended as one particular sound, one particular chord, one particular color, there are generally notes that are associated with that. If it's a D7 sharp 11, that means that we would have a natural fifth. So in this instance, D to A would exist. And there's the sharp 11. So as I said at the beginning, that's kind of what I default to because it includes this G sharp or A flat. If it's a D7 flat 5, we wouldn't have the A natural, it would only be A flat, and we would generally not have B in there, we would have B flat, implying a whole tone scale because of that E. D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C, as opposed to that is a Lydian dominant, or what would go with a sharp 11 chord on a dominant chord. What's interesting in these observations, and I don't think I said this on the piano, was that oftentimes in the recordings that I was checking out, there seems to be a telepathy that precedes the moment. What I'm saying is, oftentimes there's very little conflict. Like if the pianist is playing whole tone, the bass player seems to know to play whole tone like ahead of time. And if the pianist is not playing whole tone, it seems like the bass player oftentimes is choosing to just play it as a sharp 11, so to not play a whole tone. But they obviously are not talking about it. This is in the middle of the performance. So it's just a strange little thing that I observed. It's not across the board, but just a general sort of vibe. So let me talk about a couple of examples, or several examples, that I went through. The first is from a YouTube video from 1964, a live performance with Ernie Shepherd on bass, and he actually sings too. I'll try to remember to put the link to that below. But, or I'll put the little snippet of the video right here. In this instance, Ernie plays this. He plays D. In those two bars. That is a strict whole tone. And he plays it again. He plays it twice in this moment where the D7 happens. So clearly he means flat 5 there. He's thinking flat 5. He also plays, he has a bass solo. In that solo, he's also playing some whole tone things. But, as we'll discover in the other examples too, he's not always doing whole tone. Sometimes he does, I believe, play A's, if not B's as well in there. So that is the natural fifth, which means that implies a sharp 11. Another example, this is from an album called Billy Strayhorn, The Desired Effect. It's on Nagel Hired Records, and I cannot find any information about this album at all. I don't even actually know if it's Billy Strayhorn playing piano here. I think it is, based on the recording quality. So I don't know who's playing bass. And it's played in D flat instead of C. So this chord here is an E flat 7 instead of a D7. E flat 7, sharp 11, or flat 5. I don't know who the bass player is, but the bass player on E flat 7 plays E flat, F, G, A, G, and then the 5 down low. So 1, 2, 3, either flat 5 or sharp 11, but that starts to sound like a whole tone, and then goes down, G, F, E flat, but then plays B flat on beat 4. So what's the intention there? Here's another example, another 2 bars of the E flat 7. He plays E flat, F, G, A, G, E flat, D flat, B flat. So B flat again, which again is to me insinuating that is a sharp 11 and not a flat 5, because he's got the natural fifth in there. So here's another example from a YouTube video with Billy Strayhorn on piano, sitting in with the Duke Ellington Orchestra. And John Lamb is on bass, and one curious moment in these 2 bars, he plays D, E, F sharp, G, and then A flat, and then B flat. So perhaps that G is an approach note to the A flat, but again, A flat followed by B flat implies whole tone. Another example of these 2 bars is, or the end of the 2 bars, he plays D, A natural, D, A natural again. So he's playing the natural fifth twice, which implies the sharp 11. This is in the same tune. To complicate that further, Billy Strayhorn, at least in several instances, is playing, to my ears, a whole tone sound, whole tone things happening on piano. So either John Lamb is not catching that, or is just sort of playing willy-nilly, as they say, trying to make something happen. In other instances in this recording, he is playing A flats in that moment. In other moments of this chord, he's playing A naturals. So he's sort of not sticking to one thing throughout the whole tune, which complicates things. In one part of the video, he plays very clearly A flats repeated. He plays like A flat, C, D, C, A flat, D, D, D again. So he's basically just playing, really implying a flat 5 there. Like that. And right here on this part of the fingerboard. So again, a little bit confusing, right? Billy is definitely playing some whole tone, not all the time, right there. Not all the time by any means. So what does one do? Let's look at another bass player. Ray Brown is very much a fan of Duke Ellington. When he's coming up, he listens to Duke Ellington a lot and is a genius. So he has a version of Take the A Train on one of his early albums, if not his first album, called This Is Ray Brown. And what he plays is generally clear, but sometimes not. For the first time and the second time during the head, he again plays the strict whole tone scale. D, E, F sharp. That's there, clear as day. And he does that again when the D7 happens. So it's not immediately repeats it, he repeats it later, that exact whole tone scale. Absolutely clear as day. Another time he descends, D, C, B flat, A flat, like that. Also from the whole tone scale, clearly meant there. Again, another time he plays A natural. What is happening? D, A, F sharp, A, D, A, not a flat 5 there. And another time later, he plays the whole tone thing again. D, I'm sorry, well, close to implying that. D, E, F, F sharp, A flat. So D, E. That's definitely like a whole tone sound there. But in this recording, during the guitar solo, the guitarist is playing a B natural sometimes. Maybe Ray is adjusting to that in the moment. You know, I could go down further into this rabbit hole. This took me a while, and I would encourage you to check it out too. If you're curious about it, I certainly would like a definitive answer. If anybody knows, please let me know a definitive answer. One thing I want to do at some point, I just had this idea recently, so I don't have time to go to Washington, D.C. to, I think it's the Library of Congress, kind of relatively recently got a whole Billy Strayhorn collection, and there is for sure music in his own hand of this tune, of his arrangement of Take the A Train. Now going to that, if we look at some of the handwritten arrangements of A Train from either Duke or Billy Strayhorn, I have to say I'm not quite sure whose handwriting is whose, and these are said to be the original manuscript, so maybe this is what I would see in the Library of Congress, but I can't totally verify that. But what's clear is that in several of these arrangements, there is no definitive note played by the horns or the piano that indicate, that's written out, that indicate if this is a flat 5 or a sharp 11. However, Duke Ellington will improvise descending whole tone lines on that moment, often. However, in one of the Billy Strayhorn, what's supposed to be just Billy's arrangement, Billy Strayhorn's arrangement, he has B naturals in the horn voicings. If there's B naturals, that implies a flat 5. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I have to look at it again, I think he also has A natural there somewhere too. So he's got A and B in there, but he himself will play whole tone on there. So, you know, what is happening over time? I think some of it has to do with both just the freedom the players have to do what they want, and the tune evolves over time, for sure. Like from the 1941 version, you know, one of the earliest recording versions from Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn is the composer. Billy Strayhorn is the composer of this, by the way. But one of the earliest versions, the horns, there is no clear thing what's happening in the horns, written out, I mean. So you could see that you could hear that it evolves over time into the 60s and 70s, like things change, right? And certainly Billy Strayhorn rearranging this adds different things as things go. As players come and go, they add different parts. So it's not a cut and dry thing. There also is a preference for how musicians like to hear harmony as far as over time, like chronologically. Like in the earlier on, like in the 40s, there's a lot more preference for like a flat 5 sound. Then later in the 60s, we prefer a sharp 11 sound. I can't exactly explain why. It's just, the music evolves. And so the same chord could be thought of two different ways. We're going to get a preference towards getting sharp 11, which is often how it's taught. And as I say, often how I default to it. So let's go to that early recording with Jimmy Blanton on bass. And what Jimmy plays, I'm finding it here on my sheet. What Jimmy plays is clearly also a whole tone thing. He plays D, A flat, B flat, C, D, E, D, A flat. That's bad fingering, but you see, like that. That's totally whole tone, isn't it? And he repeats that exact line again when this chord happens. D, A flat, B flat, C, D, E, D, A flat. Another example during the tune, he plays A natural. What is happening? D, A, D, F sharp, and then B, A, D, F sharp. So those are those determining notes, right? The A and the B flat. Clearly, he's not thinking whole tone there at all, but this is in the same recording. Here's another one where he plays the natural 5th and the natural 6th, A and B. D, F sharp, A, B, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, and he plays that twice. Again, so. So did he adjust for the solos? Was he thinking, okay, I'm going to play whole tone during the head and then adjust for the solos? And that's another approach you can take as well, right? You can just say, I'm definitely going to play, or even talk to the pianist, let's play this as whole tone. And then when the solos come, either change it up or change in the moment, whatever. There is an album called Duke Ellington Solos, Duos, and Trios. Famous version of the Pitter Panther Patter and Body and Soul with Jimmy Blanton. He plays Take the A Train on here, and there is yet another example. I don't think, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't have this written down. This is not Jimmy Blanton playing this. This is another bass player, and he plays D, A. So clear A naturals in that version. There's an album called Ellington Uptown, where Duke is once again playing whole tone things in this. And the bass player, who is Wendell Marshall, I think, I'll correct it on screen if I'm wrong there. The bass player plays D, E, F sharp, C, D. Not really determinative at all, right? He just avoids it altogether. But then a little bit later, D, E, F sharp, B natural, A natural. Very clearly not a flat 5 there. It seems like most of the time on that recording from a relatively cursory listen, that he's mostly just sort of thinking regular D7, perhaps a sharp 11. I don't hear a lot of the G sharps in there. There's another version that's in D flat. That's Duke Ellington with Count Basie, First Time is the name of the album. And there's 2 bass players on here, so I'm not 100% sure which one is playing in this. But so this chord, again, instead of D7, is an E flat 7. And the bass player plays E flat, F, G, B flat, right to the 5th. G, E flat, B flat, but now A. What is happening? The flat 5. So E flat, F, G, B flat. Now that could be an approach note to the next note, but still, what's happening? And he repeats that line a couple times in this recording, so okay, what's going on? And in the horn solos of Ellington Uptown, there's some clues there. The trumpet player definitely plays some whole tone stuff, no question, and the sax player plays a whole tone scale pretty much directly in his solo at this moment. Remember, we're E flat, this chord here is E flat 7 something. And a whole tone scale, E flat whole tone scale would be E flat, whole step is F, whole step is A. I'm sorry, they're G to A to B, D flat, E flat. And the horn player, a phrase he plays in here is 1. All those notes are directly from the whole tone scale. So that's happening, but the bass player isn't necessarily being as definitive in that moment. Clarinet solo also has whole tone phrases in it in that moment. Looking at all this stuff together, clearly there's not a clear answer. The cat is both alive and dead. It's not really the thing, right? That's not really Schrodinger's cat, but the chord is both. And I wish I had a clear answer for you, except for, as I said at the beginning, listen to what is happening. Listen to what the other players are doing and adjust if you can. If you can't, play both A flat and A in your line somehow. So thank you for joining me today. I hope that it was helpful, if not frustrating. Look for a link below for a PDF with the examples that we talked about. And always remember, straight ahead and strive for tone.